Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about John Boyega. If he were in charge of the sequel trilogy, the different take on the trilogy that he would have, it would include keeping the OG cast intact and making sure that the heroes were not desecrated to.
So basically, what all the fans have been complaining about this entire time when he was making fun of the fans.
Yeah, pretty much. And this is coming from Boyega, who said that Star Wars was too white. He just said not too long ago that it's so white that a black person existing in it's a big deal. Toxic fans are okay with us playing the friend, but we can't touch their heroes. And he's like, I'm not going to touch your heroes. I think we need to be additive. And look, I think he's aware. Maybe he's aware now, or he's just trying to angle to stay in the graces of fandom. But I think he is aware that Disney dropped the ball majorly, and I know he's pissed at Disney because Finn did not have the role he thought Finn was going to have.
Finn should have had the role that everyone thought Finn was going to have.
And Disney just destroyed Star Wars with the sequels. The sequels just destroyed the whole franchise.
There was a whole narrative that everybody was racist because of Finn, and it was like, but the audience wanted Finn to have a better story. Boyega, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but if I recall correctly, which I might not be, was kind of making allusions to that people were kind of racist, and that's what he said in the other thing.
Yeah.
Now he's going back and being like, here's, if I was in charge, guys, I would do it. Everything that you guys have been saying for the last how many years, I would do. But that's not what you said like a few months or a few years ago at this point.
Yeah, it's really strange. And this is, the fans were actually defending him because they didn't think it was right that they shrunk or removed him completely from posters in China.
Yep.
And
fans being a lot of people that these people claim they hate.
Right. So let's talk about it. Let's see what he has to say. I think this is kind of a duh. Like, there were so many mistakes made with the sequels, and it could have been a slam dunk for Disney. They could have actually passed the torch, but we didn't even get a scene with Han, Luke, and Leia together. I mean, one thing people wanted, and even Mark Hamill, despite the fact that he has spent the last several years just ranting about politics, he has gotten himself in trouble for kind of low-key talking about how he didn't care for The Last Jedi, posting a picture of Han, Luke, Leia, Lando, Chewie in the cockpit of the Falcon, which pissed people off too, because they're like, you're just shitting on Rey and Finn and the new cast. And
what you mean? You're just shitting on Rey because Finn and Poe got shit on in the second movie.
Yeah, Finn would have been in the back taking out the trash or something. He wouldn't have been in the cockpit.
He was a garbage collector. So
yeah, I know, of all the backstories, right? It's like they made it out in the beginning like he was a trained killer, and they're like, yeah, I was just a janitor. Because you gotta have a funny black sidekick. Mm-hmm. You can't have him being a leading man. So let's talk about this before we get into it any further. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You'll get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com and sign up for notifications. So when we drop a new video, you guys will get notified, ideally, when we do that. So this is coming from Variety. John Boyega would have kept Han Solo and Luke Skywalker in Star Wars sequel trilogy if he was a producer. I want to give those characters way more.
We all wanted way more. Disney, that's one thing that got me, J.J. Abrams and Disney. You had one job. One job, and you teased that job, and you said that you led people to believe that you were going to put Han, Luke, and Leia together.
Yes,
that they were going to be on the Falcon together, and that they might be passing it off to somebody else, but they would go off onto their lives, and we would be moving on. And you didn't do it.
Yeah. So he was at the Florida SuperCon in Miami, and he offered a candid take on what he would have done if he had been a producer on the films from the beginning. When asked by an audience member during his spotlight panel what changes he would have made if he had to remake the sequels, he delivered a blunt assessment of the franchise's creative choices. Where was he when they were doing all the planning?
Well, where was he in the last several years until now? I mean, until recently, he was saying, "Oh, token black guy racism," and now he's saying he's basically repeating everything that the people he's been bashing have been saying this entire time.
If I was a producer on Star Wars from the beginning, you would have had a whole completely different thing, he said. It would be mad. First of all, we're not getting rid of Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, all these people. We're not doing that. The first thing we're going to do is fulfill their story, fulfill their legacy. we're gonna make a good moment of handing on the baton.
Right,
yeah,
which is what people thought they were going to do.
there wouldn't have been the backlash had they handled the legacy characters better. I don't think. Boyega also took aim at the power scaling of new characters in the sequels. Our new characters will not be OP'd in these movies, Ray. They won't just grab stuff and know what to do with it, Ray. Mm-hmm. No, you've got to struggle like every other character in this franchise. I'd do that. Yeah, I mean, everybody's
picked
like
up a lightsaber and he tried to fight and got hurt because he still tried because it was bravery, but he wasn't able to wield it like somebody who's a pro, unlike Rey, who somehow could defeat Kylo Ren easily.
Yeah, and
mind control and everything.
And the thing is that Finn would have had some hand-to-hand combat training as a stormtrooper, so he would have probably been a little bit better equipped to.
That's true. That's a valid point.
But even everybody talks about Luke Skywalker being a Mary Sue. I'm like, don't you remember the first movie when he had to learn how to use the lightsaber with the training droid? Like, does nobody remember that?
He supposedly got really good at it really quick, but yeah.
Yeah, but he barely used a lightsaber in the first movie because he wasn't. And even when he got
the port shot, he said he was doing something like that at home before this. Like
shooting womp rats. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. It wasn't like he just went into it and automatically did it. He said it was no different than what they were doing something similar. They're small back home.
Yep. And he had dead Obi-Wan's help, right? We just spoiled the movie. Beyond character development, Boyega outlined a different creative approach that would have drawn from the expanded universe of Star Wars storytelling. I'd look to the old Republic stories and see what we can add to the continuation of that. I would definitely want to see Force Unleashed stories in there. So basically all the stuff that fans actually liked, instead of rewriting everything with the High Republic.
Completely different than what he was saying, what was being said before. But anyway,
I would try to expand the Star Wars universe as much as possible while still respecting the lore. If we're expanding the lore, we have to do it within the respective boundaries that stay true. Yeah, Disney's bright idea was to scrap the expanded universe altogether, bring in a bunch of activists to rewrite everything badly, and then still have to go back to
the Lucasfilm Story Group.
The Lucasfilm Story Group, and then they still had to go back to the expanded universe to cherry pick characters and scenarios to pad it out because they couldn't come up with anything. They couldn't come up with a better villain than Thrawn, so they're like, okay, we'll just bring Thrawn
I think
back.
it was because people wanted that.
They did, but
that's
like
what people wanted. We'll get them back. We'll give them what they want.
But it's too late.
Do it poorly. Yeah.
Yeah, the actor was particularly critical of Luke Skywalker's arc in The Last Jedi, where the character appeared as a Force projection during the film's climax. But Luke Skywalker wouldn't be disappearing on a rock. Hell no. Staying there like he's a projector. I'd want to give those characters way more. I know he said before he was angry that he didn't get to have a scene with Mark Hamill.
Well, I'd be too. But I'm like, not now. I mean, then I would have been mad. Now I'd just be like, thank God, because I don't know what he'd say to me. But it's just, he might have believed this whole time, but he never said this. Like, he was busy, making comments like that. And I think he was under the impression, and maybe he's learned from people writing him and talking to him since then, that he was under the impression that people, were being racist and didn't want Finn. But it was quite the opposite. I think most people you talk to were like, that was a waste opportunity. Like, Finn's story was really unique, and it was something very cool, and people were excited about it, and it was a wasted opportunity. I think him and Finn and Poe both got the short end of the stick.
Yes.
I think even as a trio, at least with Han, Luke, and Leia, they go off on their different adventures, but they were still brought together, and you knew they were a group. These guys, they just kept separated all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
until they tried to unite them at the end.
Yeah, they tried to bring him back at the end. I think they were trying to mirror the original trilogy, but there was a reason for that. And you could send, Luke had to go train. You could send, Han and Leia off on their own, and things were going to go in a different direction before, they wrapped up with Jedi. But like in this case, yeah, there was a good chemistry there. I thought some of the best scenes in The Force Awakens were the Finn and Poe scenes. And Finn, like, I remember seeing it in the theater, and I was actually invested in his story because I'm like, this is something we really haven't seen before, a stormtrooper becoming a Jedi. And that's where I thought it was going to go because, all the trailers were, Finn with a lightsaber. Finn's the first character we see in the trailer. And I'm like, okay, so Luke's going to train Finn and Rey, and probably one will turn on the dark side, will probably be Rey. And then Finn will be, and they'll be kind of like, do I train a stormtrooper? He's like, it's a stormtrooper. Like, what are we going to do here? And it's like, no, I'm just a joke character and a janitor. And then he actually is brave at the end. And the very first thing they do in The Last Jedi is turn him into a freaking joke.
I know. It's that him and Poe both. And I was like so mad about that. I'm like, you set them up that like, okay, we're going to move forward. They're brave. Especially Finn. He's brave. He didn't run away. He stood up. and then you're going to make him run away. That makes no sense. So I just think the whole thing is a cluster. But it's funny to me because now he's saying everything that we've all been saying for the last several years.
Maybe he's hoping for a Finn Disney Plus show or something.
I don't know, but I don't know. People aren't going to come back because they're just so burnt out on it. But everything he said was what YouTubers and fans have been saying for years.
You know, I love how everything YouTubers and fans have been saying for years, it's all true now, right? But for years, if you pointed this out, if you actually said, this is where it's so weird. If you said, I think the black character should have been the main character because from a storytelling perspective, that makes the most sense from where they set everything up, right? Or at least a co-lead. And then they call you a racist for that.
Yeah,
I think
or
the black character, a misogynist, like the black character should have been a Jedi. You racist.
See, but then that's where it goes to narrative because the media all knew what people were saying, which was they wanted to see Finn, and they just ran with it because they were trying to malign these people because they were pissed that they didn't agree with their opinion of the movie. So they were trying to malign people by saying, "Oh, they're racist and misogynist and all this other shit." That was never true.
No,
because they were trying to discredit them so that they get more of what they wanted. And then by the Rise of Skywalker, they were pissed because it was not what they wanted either. And then Disney found a way to unite everyone in hating the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, because it didn't do anything right. They basically tried to do it. They tried to do a patch job, and the biggest mistake they made from day one, beyond Han, Luke, and Leia not sharing a scene together, was that there was no plan. There was no plan. Like, how hard is it to be like, look, we know we're doing a trilogy. This is what happens in part 1, part 2, part 3. George Lucas, with all the criticism of the prequels, at least had a basic idea of where he was going with those 3 movies.
Yeah.
Right? And there was no plan.
That's basic. That's basic writing.
It's like writing 101. The reason they could get away with it on the original Star Wars was because nobody expected the first movie to be a hit. And then they kind of had to scramble to, to do the sequels and stuff, and things changed, and he didn't really have the whole story fleshed out. But in this case, it's like, damn well you're doing 3 movies. They're probably all going to be huge, and the fans are going to have certain expectations, and you just have to do bare minimum, right? Just bare minimum.
It doesn't matter about the fans. It's for a new audience that doesn't exist.
That no longer, they're over it.
Never existed.
Never existed.
So anyway, Boyega has actually finally come around to seeing what everybody's been saying this entire time. So there's that. But are we going to wrap this up?
We're going to wrap this up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.
For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.